Hello, today we're going to be talking about the new Amazon Prime series, The Rings of Power, the first two episodes, so there will be spoilers. If you haven't seen the show yet, you maybe want to watch it and then come back and listen to this, but it's up to you. Enjoy.
Hello, and welcome to Rock, Paper, Swords, the historical action and adventure podcast. My name is Matthew Harfy.
And I'm Stephen A. Mackay.
We're both best-selling historical fiction authors, and together we chat about all things historical and anything that could fall under the banner of action and adventure in books, film, TV, and games.
And rock music too, sometimes.
Each episode, we cover different aspects of history, and we also talk about writing, not only with each other, but sometimes with guest authors. But today, we don't have a guest author on. It's just me and Stephen, and we're going to talk about the first two episodes of the new Amazon TV series, The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power. The first two episodes came out today in the UK, 2 a.m. UK time. Both Stephen and I had great intentions of staying up in the night and watching them as they came out, and then we realized it was at 2 o'clock and not at midnight that they came out, and I'm glad I went to bed anyway because I'm getting of an age that I need my sleep.
Yeah, you're too old for it, and I just couldn't be bothered, basically.
That's how much effort we put into this and every episode of Rock, Paper, Swords. But we did both get up relatively early and watch the two episodes, and we're here to talk about them. So the thing is, this is the most expensive TV series ever made, apparently, according to all the blurb. The television rights cost Amazon $250 million back in November 2017. And they've made a 5-season commitment worth at least $1 billion. And I think I've seen bandied around that they've spent $350 million or something so far. Incredible amount of money. So what are your first thoughts?
Should we just get straight to it?
I think we should just get straight to it. Why not? Okay. I think, should we just do our first thoughts first?
Yeah, my first thoughts were, overall, I thought it was excellent. I really liked it. And I must admit that it surprised me because the trailers I thought didn't look particularly good. It looked a bit disjointed, not particularly focused. But no, I thought it was great. I really enjoyed both episodes, and I'm looking forward to the next one.
I have to say, I feel very similar. I was kind of not looking forward to it in a strange way, being a little bit thinking there'd been so much hype about it, but then also all of the sort of super uber Lord of the Rings fans have been slagging it off and saying, oh, it's all rubbish and it's not based on the stories of Tolkien and all this kind of stuff. So for anyone who doesn't know, they've gone, it's a prequel, but far, far, far in the past from the movies or the books. And it's based on, very loosely, I think, on bits and pieces that are mentioned in the appendices and of the Lord of the Rings and bits of the, I don't even think it's got much of the Silmarillion in there. I think it's based on the appendices.
Because I tried to read the Silmarillion years ago and I just couldn't read it. I loved Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit at the time, but I just couldn't read that book. So
same here.
I don't know how much is based on that or not.
Well, I think it says that some part of it says based on the appendices and characters from the Lord of the Rings and stuff. So anyway, it takes place in, I don't know, the Second Age or something, as opposed to the Third Age, whatever the Lord of the Rings, when the Lord of the Rings is. And it's in a time before hobbits. So they're harfoots.
But is it hobbits. Really? Exactly, because they're basically just the same thing, aren't they?
They're basically, I think the reason they've done that is because the harfoots are mentioned, I think, in these appendices, as saying that the hobbits didn't exist before a certain period of the history of the world of Middle Earth and everything. Anyway, before we get into the weeds of the details of stuff like that, because I can feel myself pulling in that direction, my general thoughts are the same as yours, that I really enjoyed it much more than I expected. And yeah, I mean, to the point that I was thinking of saying to the wife when she comes home from work tonight, if she wants to watch it, I'd be happy to sit through those episodes again to see if there's any more details out of them. There were some things that I didn't like as much as other bits, but I thought in general, you can really tell that the money's been well spent, or I don't know if it's well spent, but at least you can see that it's on the screen.
Yeah, it's not wasted.
There's a lot of money, but yeah, you can see it. It looks incredible. I read briefly a review, or just a little snippet from a review in one of the papers online. I think it was the Independent, and it said something like, it makes the House of the Dragon, which is the prequel for Game of Thrones, it said it looks so good that it makes the House of the Dragon look like it was cobbled together on Minecraft. Which I thought was a little bit over the top, but I like the.
Okay, I can see the point. I've actually got a note here that I've written down. It's not like House of the Dragon very much, because it's dark, but it's not dirty. That's what I've written. It's dark, but not as dirty. Do you know, there's dark themes in Rings of Power.
Yes.
But the characters don't all look grim. They're not all dangerous looking, and there's not all the gratuitous sex. And it's for a different audience. But I think
that's an interesting thing. The fact of the sort of the no gratuitous sex. Obviously, there's violence. There are fights and things because it's Lord of the Rings, and there are male and female characters, and there's all sorts of evil monsters, and there's all sorts of things there. But it's not. Yeah, it doesn't have that sort of. Well, it basically has the same vibe as the Lord of the Rings movies. In that,
exactly.
Yes, there's jeopardy and darkness, but it's not. There's going to be, you can tell straight away. There's going to be no sex. There's probably no swearing. There's the violence that there is going to be in battle or in conflict. It's not going to be sexual violence and stuff like that. It's just a very different tone to the Game of Thrones series and to the House of the Dragon.
It does look like a Peter Jackson movie though, and it also sounds like one. I think it's the same musical director.
So interestingly enough, Howard Shore has done the theme tune, but he hasn't done the music. He hasn't done the music for the series though. I looked.
It sounds just like it.
So yeah, it's a guy called Bear McCreary who's done the music, and I think he did the music for Black Sails. So he's done music for other big series before. But yeah, Howard Shore composed the series of the introductory music. Oh, I can see you've got your little doggy with you. So Bear McCreary did the music for all sorts of things. He's done. I'm just having a quick look. He's done Outlander and The Walking Dead. So he's done loads of things. Godzilla, Call of Duty, God of War, computer games. So he's done loads of different things. But anyway, yeah, he's done the music. But obviously, they've used, I guess, some of the themes that Howard Shore created. And
I thought it was very similar to the movies, and it looks very similar. And
it
narration
looks
at the start.
It definitely looks very similar. Yeah, I mean, so that's one of the things. So going into the nitty gritty now of it, I was kind of half. You're right that it looks very much like the movies, and it has that same vibe. I did think that in the first episode, particularly, they relied a little bit too much on kind of replicating almost scene for scene bits from the Peter Jackson movies. It's almost like they decided, okay, we're going to have the voiceover from Galadriel, then we're going to pan to this scene of like a big conflict with Sauron or Morgoth or whoever they're fighting. We're going to have that destruction there and death, very similar to the sort of the Peter Jackson movie, the first one, The Fellowship. Then we're going to have the close-up of the helmet being picked up instead of there's a close-up of a helmet being picked up in the aftermath of the battle, as opposed to like the ring of power. It felt sort of very sort of samey. I can see why they've done it, is to sort of say, look, you're in safe hands. This is a world you've known before, but maybe it was a little bit too overdone. But the voiceover went on a little bit too long. I felt that it was a lot of exposition. But I'm nitpicking, really. I mean,
I thought it was quite good.
I think it was well done, but it was like about 8 minutes, of it. And I thought, wow, you're going you're stretching it a bit there.
No, I thought it was a good idea because all the Uber fans, as you said earlier, are complaining about it not being any good. And I think if you like the movies, this will immediately draw you in because you'll be saying, well, this seems just like it, so I'll give it a chance.
Yes, and I think that there is that. I mean, there's other things that I thought in that first episode, they very soon into that beginning, they find the it's like a big castle somewhere in the northern reaches or wherever they are, and it's very much like Moria in the the atmosphere. They go in, it's very dark and cold and mist, and then there's a troll. The troll is very similar to the troll.
They have to fight,
and have to fight it. And I did think that
nobody dies, even though the troll picks them up and smashes them right against the wall. They all seem to be standing at the end, which I thought was a bit cartoony.
Well, I thought that whole fight with the troll was a bit annoying, actually, and it that's one of the only moments in it I was like really, and it's a pity it comes quite early on in this, because I think they wanted to show this is the same world and there's some jeopardy and stuff. But like you say, he should have ripped someone's head off or something, or just killed someone, because the jeopardy didn't feel like it was real.
Exactly, and these weren't characters that continue on. There was one guy that you see again. Yeah. But the other characters, they were just fodder. They could have easily been just died.
And the way that Galadriel killed them was very much the Legolas leaping about, rolling two swords, or that sort of stuff. It felt very much the elven fighting like cartoon fights, which was a bit. On the note of Galadriel, who obviously is going to be one of the major characters throughout the whole series, and she obviously is one of the threads that connects the series to the movies and to the books. I think the actress, who's called Morvid, I don't know how to pronounce her name, Morfydd Clark. I thought she was brilliant. I thought she was really, really good. Very watchable. She looks close enough to what's her name? Kate Blanchett. And she has the voice, similar to Kate Blanchett enough that you think, yes, okay, this is that character. So she's really pretty, but at the same time a fantastic warrior and sort of badass, and just really great character, I thought. And they could have ruined it. I mean, they could have spoiled it with her being one of the major characters. They could have. When I first heard about it, I thought, really, Galadriel? She's kind of all ethereal and wandering around in a robe, and it's like, oh, let's look into this mirror. I thought this is going to be a bit naff, but she's actually great. I thought she does well.
She is very good. To be honest, I thought pretty much everyone I really liked.
Yeah,
I never had a particular character that I didn't like. I was surprised Lenny Henry was, because obviously over in the UK here, Lenny Henry just appears on Comic Relief on the TV like once a year, really. I've never really seen him in much else. I know exactly who he is, and I know him very well, but he's not really been in that much on TV as an actor.
No, not as an actor, but he was very big in the 80s, wasn't he? He was huge.
Famous, but star. As a kind of stand-up comedian and stuff.
Yeah.
And now I think he's most famous nowadays for being in the Travelodge adverts.
Yes.
Or it might even be Holiday Inn, I don't know which it is, but he just does adverts.
Premier Inn, I think it's Premier Inn. Is it Premier Inn? Maybe?
It's either that or Travelodge. So he does them, and that's all I've really seen him in. So I was surprised that he got such a big part in this, but he's fine.
His character in this is called Sadok. I looked it up. That was one of the benefits. One of the benefits of watching it on Amazon. Well, I know it's Amazon Prime, but one of the benefits of watching is you can pause it and it'll tell you the name of the characters and who the actors are. So I was jotting things down when I was watching a few times. But yeah, he's okay. Although, coming on to the Lenny Henry thing, he's quite famous as a stand-up comedian for doing different accents, doing different voices, and of course he does in this faux Irish accent that all the Harfoots have, which are these sort of like Hobbit. Basically, they're like hobbits. They're like in between hobbits and Ewoks. They did annoy me a little bit early on when they appeared, and it was like, oh, we're here, the little Ewok people, and they sort of uncovered their little sort of pretend hidden camp from the big people. So basically you put a sheet over something, and the big people are so stupid they can't see it.
But even though there was a big wheel at one part.
Yeah, it just
a big wagon wheel, which you could see quite clearly.
Yeah, it felt very strange. The fact that whole sequence of like the appearance of the Harfoots, they felt a little bit too twee and a bit, like I say, like Ewoks. It was a little bit that Ewok moment. And after that, they got better. After the first sort of couple of minutes, but after
it's a good contrast because you've got the elves, which are going through this dark period and everybody fighting and dying, and then you've got the humans, which we've not came to yet, who are fighting and dying and all this darkness, and then the Harfoots are Harfeet. They kind of add this.
They actually mention it's Harfoots. They actually say it because I took a note.
Right.
I wondered if it's Harfoots or Harfeet. They call themselves Harfoots.
Well, I think they had not exactly comic relief, but a little bit of lightness.
Yeah,
I mean, again, all the dark.
Again, the actresses that play the part of the two main characters, they're good.
Yeah, they're good.
I did again. I mean, I was talking about all the sort of nods to the original trilogy and the connections, and they've obviously done this thing of saying, right, we've got Sam and Frodo, the main hobbits. We're going to have Eleanor Brandyfoot, who's known as Norrie, and Poppy, whatever Poppy's surname is Eleanor. Norrie is going to be Frodo. She's like the one who wants to go looking for adventure, or Bilbo, and Poppy is like the slightly the slightly less adventurous sidekick. Again, it's like we'll basically take Sam and Frodo and we'll put them into female characters, and we'll say that that's them now. And in a similar way, we haven't really gotten on to other characters, but there's the character, like the Aragorn character, who's basically an elf who looks like he's a ranger, basically, who wanders in. Arondir is his name. And he obviously, instead of being a human falling in love with an elven maiden, he's an elf falling in love with a human woman, who's the healer of the village. Which, it feels a little bit slightly too on the nose. Like, we've seen it all before. Let's repeat the stories, but slightly we'll twist it round. Just switch the genders or whatever.
And also we have to address the elephant in the room. I think people were calling it the Rings of Wokeness and things like that, because there's a lot of black characters in it and a lot of women. Basically, like there's the dwarf. She's a black dwarf, female one, and the guy you're talking about, the elf, he's black as well, and he's got this white woman that he likes, and a lot of people were up in arms about this before they'd even seen the show. I think after watching it, I think you'd have to be incredibly racist, really, to have a problem with the people in this show, because it's fine.
I think you'd have to be very racist. I think you're right. Is that in a fantasy? I mean, it's bad enough when people get het up about it in a historical setting. Although I can kind of understand, when you're talking about I was talking to my daughter about it this morning, and saying Lord of the Rings is fantasy. So at the end of the day, color-blind casting makes sense, because who's to say
they're supposed to have been
skin people have? They're
supposed to have travelled all over the Middle Earth in the books and stuff. So why wouldn't there be other colours? And
anyway, and elves don't exist, dwarves don't exist. So who gives a shit what colour
their
skin is? Right?
It doesn't feel like you're forcing it down your throat. Whether we're going to do this and you'll just have to like it. It's fine. It's completely natural, and the people are all good actors. And
so
I thought it was fine. So
it's giving representation to actors of different colors. I think it's great. It works, as you say. It doesn't feel forced. It makes sense. I think if anything, the having so many female protagonists feels more forced in some way than the skin color. Just because it feels like a big diversion from potentially from the books. And maybe that sort of epic fantasy, but it's not necessarily a bad thing either. It's not a bad thing, having more representation.
No, I'm sure a lot of women will be watching it, so they want to see their characters are heroes to them as well. So I never had any issues at all with that, and I think people that maybe were worried about it, they should just watch it and just it's not an issue.
It's not an issue. So. For me, the main issue is the fact they've kind of regurgitated storylines or character pairings, whatever, which feels a little bit more lazy or whatever. They could have come up with something maybe slightly more original. As it is, it feels very much almost like a retell. We're going to see like a retelling of stuff that we've already seen.
I don't have a problem with that, though.
Well, I don't have a problem with it. I just think that if there's any what's the word I'm looking for? If you can, accuse it of anything, I think there's the accusations that I could level at it more than anything else. I don't think it's anything to do with woke. I think it's just not as original or creative as it could potentially be. But then again, it's within a world, and it needs to fit in with that setting and that world, and it does. So.
And these are only the first 2 episodes, so I would imagine that they're going to shoehorn as much of this stuff in as they can, just to bring back previous fans of the Peter Jackson movies or whatever, and then it'll probably expand as it goes forward, and they'll bring in new scenarios and stretch out a bit.
Yeah, I thought that the first episode I thought was weaker than the second episode for that very reason. I think it was shoehorning in so much of exposition just to make you feel familiar. We got there, making it feel familiar, introducing so many characters. it never becomes confusing or difficult, but it just felt like there was a lot of it. And then in the second one, you kind of know who everyone is, and you settle down a bit more, and you go,
And
okay,
the stories
now
are starting to develop a
I
bit
want to know
there.
what's happening now. So obviously we're giving spoilers away potentially as we're talking about this. So if you haven't watched it yet, go off and watch the thing. The elves. So Galadriel is basically looking for evil where they say there isn't anything, and they try to basically they shut her up, and they say to everybody, here's your reward. You're going to go off to the chosen lands of the West. You're going to go off into the West to the Grey Havens. It's all going to be great. You're going to go to the eternal whatever. Now, I told you that watching the Peter Jackson movies, and in fact in the books, I have an issue with the whole thing of the elves buggering off into the West. I don't really understand it. And in this, I understood even less. It makes no sense whatsoever, because if they're able to just get on a boat and just go to the Grey Havens, then why don't they all just do it? If that's where they want to go, if it's so bloody brilliant that it's like a reward, then why don't they all just do it? Get on a ship, go away, and why would you stay? Why would you stay in Middle Earth if Middle Earth is so corrupt and terrible and full of evil? And it makes no sense to me.
Well, and it's funny you should say that, because one of the things I noted was every place in it looks so good that I want to live there, basically.
Yeah.
I think the Elvish place, it's not Rivendell, is it? It's Linden.
It's Linden, yeah, which is supposedly like their capital.
Yeah, well,
place.
it looks just like Rivendell.
It looks the same as, it's in between Rivendell and Lothlorien, isn't it? It's sort of
it's a kind of mixture. Well, it looks great, really great, and even the Harfoot's little village or community or whatever looks really nice, and the human place, the human town,
looks fair enough. I mean,
love to live there, really.
Yeah.
So I don't know why the elves are wanting to leave. I don't know what their problem is.
But if they do, and that's what they want to do, which they seem to want to, why not just do it? And it's so weird. And then I have to say, the scene, there's the worst scene actually, the whole thing of the ship going off towards the Grey Havens, and they're all just standing there like lemons on the boat.
Jumps off.
Yeah, but they're standing there. They're standing like in these two rows. They look like they've joined some sort of cult. They're standing in some sort of weird... It doesn't
look like they're going off to some great place.
It looks like they're going to be sort of blown up or something.
That's a bit weird.
It's really weird. It looks like they come into the light, and it's like moths going towards the lamp, and they're going to all be burnt to a cinder or something. It doesn't look inviting.
It's a bit strange as well, because obviously Elrond fancies her, basically. That's what it seems like. So why is he so happy for her to go away if he's never going to see her?
And the Elrond's half elf. So he's they're telling him at the very beginning, there's a little nod to that as well, but they haven't said any more about it. They sort of said, you're not invited to the next talk because it's only elves, So they made some sort of thing, which is interesting, because we talked about the sort of the racial stuff. Yeah. I mean, there's kind of an idea that somehow he's a lesser elf, and so somehow he's gonna suffer because of that, which will be interesting to see if they bring that further in, because obviously he looks the same as all the rest of the elves. There's no.
Well, actually, it sounds the same as Hugo Weaving. I thought it was him reading at the start. It might even really be him that they've maybe matched the voices together, because I thought it was him. It sounded so much like him.
But Galadriel, I thought, definitely sounds like Kate Blanchett. So they've made a real conscious effort to make them sound like the original.
The original.
But I don't know, that scene of them all standing there on the boat, going, we're just and. There were so many bits about that were just weird. And
then she jumps off and just decides to swim for a couple 100 miles.
Or thousands. I don't know how many miles. Yeah. It's like, I'll be fine. It's like, whatever.
Until a sea serpent appears.
But yeah, I did like the sea serpent. I thought it was really well done. There was a moment when it swam under the ship that I thought, that looks really good. But then maybe underutilized after that. There wasn't much.
I thought it was just like Dune. The sandworms in Dune. Yeah. They seem to have taken that idea, but I don't know. Maybe it's in the appendices. I don't know, but it definitely seems like that to me.
I was interested. There was a little moment of interest for me, but one of the actors that actually spoke to when we were trying to get the Serpent Sword TV series made was in it. So he was filming in New Zealand when we interviewed him via Zoom a couple of years ago, and he's called a guy called Simon Merrills. And he's the watch warden. So he was at the top of the tower talking to Arondir, sort of saying, we're going to pack up now and leave, and we protect all the people. There's this guy. Yeah, he was out there, and he was caught in lockdown, and he was locked down for ages in New Zealand, and he couldn't tell us. He'd signed all these NDAs, and he said, he said, I can't tell you, I've signed everything. So he was very good. He kept stum about it all when we talked to him. He said, I can't tell you. He said, all I can tell you is I'm filming a big series in New Zealand.
And you guessed immediately
and,
then.
Yeah, obviously. And he said, oh, it's not made by Amazon, is it? He said, oh, I couldn't tell you, But,
Couldn't possibly divulge that.
He didn't tell you. I couldn't possibly divulge this thing. But the poor guy, he was stuck there for months in New Zealand on his own.
Hellish,
because he was basically locked down and he was stuck in like an apartment that he rented in wherever, in Auckland or wherever it was, and Wellington, I don't know where. What's the
Auckland's in Australia, is it not?
Yeah, it's Auckland's in Australia, so it must be Wellington. Is it Wellington, the capital city of New Zealand? We should know this. Okay, wherever the capital city of New Zealand is, he's locked down there.
That's where he was.
And he was desperate to chat. Felt like he'd not be able to talk to anybody he didn't know, so he talked to us, and he kindly offered to appear in the Serpent Sword if we could get it off the ground. He'd appear in it, so seems like a really nice guy.
Hopefully, fingers crossed.
Great. Yeah, fingers crossed. One day, who knows? But it was great to see him on screen, albeit briefly. I'm assuming he might appear again because otherwise, being locked down for donkey's years just to appear for like a 5-minute shot would be a bit disappointing. But I think he had to do all like sword training and all sorts. I'm assuming the role is going to be a bit bigger. So yeah, I'm looking at other.
Well, one thing they've got this symbol of Sauron.
Oh yeah.
What is this symbol? Is that? Have you ever heard of that in the books or anything? Did you just make it up?
I think they might have just made it up. Instead of like the Eye of Sauron, we've got like the weird trident.
Yeah,
of
they
Sauron.
can see things basically. I assume that Sauron can sense when somebody's lighting up this symbol, which actually looks exactly the same as the Judas Priest symbol. The band.
Maybe that's what it is.
They have a symbol that's exactly the same, like a fork, a trident fork.
It just looks like a trident, doesn't it?
Yeah. I thought it was a bit weird, but again, it's like you say, I think it's just harking back to that giant eye that could see everything. He can sense everything through this, maybe, and it's just the same kind of idea.
Yeah, that felt a little bit trite, and it's like we're going to just have something that's going to give him away as well. It's like, why would you have something to give yourself away if you're in hiding as well? It's like, I left my symbol all over the place, so you can see that I'm still alive or around. It felt a bit weird, but of course you got the boy who's found it, the son of the hot healer.
Yeah, he's found the sword. He's
found the funny thing that the weapon that I guess is now going to reforge with his blood or something.
Yeah, which again was the same as Aragorn's sword, which is reformed.
Yeah.
So there's very similar themes, but I assume they'll take it in a different direction.
But as you say, I mean, even if they don't, as long as it's well done and it's
it was still good. Yeah, I still really enjoyed it.
So moving on to I've got a note here when they're on the ship. There's a funny scene when that scene I was saying with the elves all standing there and they're basically in the armor, and then they've got sort of like suddenly from nowhere appear like these sort of handmaidens or whatever that appear and sort of disrobe them, ready for their transporting into the Grey Havens or whatever it was. It was some sort of weird moment.
I didn't even notice that.
Did you notice that?
I must have left the room for a second or something.
They were tough, and it was classic because I'm sure they weren't there. I'm sure they weren't there at one point, and they were just the elves were just standing there, like, and they appeared there, and they were like taking off their armor, and you got them whole sort of disrobing thing. And when they got to Galadriel's dagger, they went to take it off her, and she's holding like the handle of the dagger, and this sort of, I don't know, maiden or whatever who's trying to take all her armor off her is holding the scabbard, and she's trying to pull it away, but by the scabbard, and she won't let it go. And I just thought, why doesn't the scabbard just come off?
Yeah.
It's really weird. It was just a really weird moment. One of those moments where you think it's such a small detail, but it doesn't make any sense to you. And you're watching it, you're thinking, this isn't, one person's holding the scabbard, one person's holding the handle, and they're kind of fighting over it for a bit. And you thought, well, it doesn't make any sense. It would just come off, and one person would be left with the knife in the hand.
Well, it could have been attached. It could have been attached. The two that I've got, actually, I took the pictures of yesterday that you'll see on Facebook with my new posters. Yeah. They've both got a clasp that goes round the handle of the sword so that it doesn't just fall out. You have to actually unclasp it.
Well, perhaps, but you can't see it. And if it's the case, then it just looks weird. Anyway, because you can't see it, but it could be the case. Anyway, it was just one of those things. But I did find it amusing, this whole thing with these. You need to go back and watch it, where these sort of maidens appear and sort of start just disrobing them.
That's about. But then again, can we just use the excuse that it's fantasy so they can do what they like? Is these maybe ghostly that just appear out of the ether?
I don't know.
So
Maybe
you
they were
don't have
there
to
in the
do
first
that.
shot of them all standing there looking like idiots waiting to go into the Grey Havens, but I didn't see them. And then, of course, we get to the end of that first episode, which is the appearance of, and I'm assuming that it's not Terminator with a beard, who appears like in a hole of burnt ground like Terminator. I'm assuming that it's Gandalf, but of course he's not named. So
Oh, it's Gandalf. Is he as old as that?
I'm assuming that it's Gandalf, isn't it? Isn't he one
I
of
have
the
no idea. I actually
Eldar that are sent?
I thought it looked like Jesus at first, and then when he
Well,
got up,
Gandalf changes from Gandalf the Grey to Gandalf the White after he's basically resurrected after fighting the Balrog.
the
So I'm
Balrog.
assuming that he is kind of a Jesus figure, really, isn't he?
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
suppose so.
but yeah, so I'm assuming that the Stranger, as he's known, because I looked in the credits to see what he's called the Stranger. But I'm thinking that he must be a Gandalf, and that's why he's got this affinity with the hobbits, because the Harfoots are the ones that discover him first when he falls down from heaven or from wherever the
I quite
elder
liked what happened with the Fireflies with him, because you
Yeah.
don't know who he is, you don't know whether he's good or bad, and this thing happens with the Fireflies, and you think, ooh, so who's he? So all the other kind of storylines, there's not much mystery to them. Galadriel's looking for Sauron; she's going to kick his ass. The humans have to fight orcs, obviously, because an orc comes up into the town, and there's no real mystery there. And the dwarves and the elves, there doesn't seem to be anything much, like, there's no mystery behind it. So I thought it was quite good with this guy. You're saying Gandalf. Who is he? That's the one bit of mystery in it that will keep you kind of guessing.
I felt similarly to that, actually. I thought, well, this is something we haven't seen before. You know, it's not a repetition of another story.
But if you're saying it's Gandalf, I've seen it before.
Well, we haven't seen the apparition of him and then him not being able to speak and sort of so. But I'm assuming, I don't know. I've not researched it or anything. I don't know. I'm assuming that it's Gandalf just because it's a bearded bloke who's younger than Gandalf. But I mean, I know that
Not
Gandalf
much.
is supposed to be.
It's supposed to be old. That's right.
Yeah, but Galadriel looks pretty similar to Galadriel in the movies too. So I mean, elves live for a long time. Gandalf's not human. So Gandalf's like an angel or whatever, isn't he? Or whatever they're called, Eldar or something. What are they called in that world? I don't know. It's a long time since I read all of that.
I'm sure I skimmed the appendices years ago, but it's not something I would make a habit of.
So no, I read it once when I did my one reading, and I just opened it up today actually just to flip through just before this, and I did notice this note here because talking about things in the second episode, we get the Elrond going to visit Durin in Khazad-dûm, I think, or somewhere, or in Moria, or wherever they are.
That was a bit odd as well.
But so he goes to visit. We don't really understand for a while why Durin is all pissed off with him. I did think it was a bit weird the way he turned up, just him and the other guy, Celebrimbor, or whatever his name is, and it's like they had no people traveling with them, wherever they sort of traveled hundreds of miles.
They never seem to have any food or a tent or anything.
Yeah, they just like wander up to the front door of this place, which on the map it looks like it's like 500 leagues away or something. You just we just
and the other guys
over
just
there.
left. The other guys just left outside. I'll be back in a few days. You just hang about outside here. No tent, no food.
Yeah, you'll be fine. Whatever.
You're an elf.
So you're an elf. You can tell. But so it's interesting that I saw that Durin. They talk about Tolkien talks about Durin in the appendices, and apparently Durin is like the most common name for kings of the dwarves. It's like there's at least 7 of them that I spotted. He's like sort of it's 7th of his name or whatever. But then he mentions, because we meet Durin and I can't remember. Oh yes, Durin. So we meet Durin and his wife is Disa. It's the first female dwarf that we've seen in the movies, I think, and she's not bearded, even though I think often
she's supposed to be.
She supposedly should have a beard, but I think that's fair enough.
Yeah, I don't see what difference it makes.
Yeah, who cares? She's great. She's brilliant. I thought she's one of these actresses that when she's on the screen, she kind of lights it up a little bit like Galadriel. These new actors that have turned up. I haven't actually got a name. I didn't get a name down, but again, these actors that you think. I thought of Galadriel. I thought she's going to make her a star. The actress Morvid Clark is going to be a star after this, definitely. But yeah, I think the Disa, the Princess Disa, as she's known. I think again, I'll need to find out her name now because I feel bad.
The thing that stuck out to me with her is she seems to have a genuine Scottish accent. which is surprising to me because in Scotland we don't have that many famous actors and actresses, so they tend to be seen in everything that gets made up here.
They're not famous though, are they? Lots of the actors. I mean,
yeah, but they kind of go through, if they've got any kind of fame at all, to appear in something as big as this, you've usually seen them in Scotland in some production made up here. And I've never seen her before, as far as I'm aware. So maybe she's not Scottish, but her accent's excellent.
She's called Sophia Nomvete, or Nomvete.
Good Scottish surname.
Yeah, I don't know about that, but just having a quick look here where she's from. So she's excellent, and I'm just seeing where she's from. If I can see full bio. She's not appeared in a huge lot of stuff.
But you know, they had, who was the guy that played Gimli? Was it? What's his name? And the Peter Jackson.
Oh,
Reese.
Yeah, he's Welsh. Yeah, he's Welsh, isn't he?
What's his but he's putting on a Scottish accent. You know, usually they just hire whoever and just tell them to do a Scottish accent. Well, his was all right, actually. But, you know, hers sounds genuine. And so does the other dwarf guy. But he's got makeup on. I'm not sure if I've seen him before or not.
Yeah, I can't see where she's from. Not doing a quick search, but anyway, she's great.
Yeah, and just for Scottish people, it just kind of.
I did think it was more interesting that they've decided that the hobbits have all got this fake Irish accent, which I found a little bit annoying.
Well, that's what I mean. I can see Irish people were sitting watching it going, "This is a stupid accent. It's not like ours."
Well, I just didn't understand why they've all got to have that.
I think they just have to appear kind of rustic, so it's either Irish or Scottish or Yorkshire, really, isn't it? They're the ones
southwest of England, you know, something.
Yeah, Cornish or something. Yeah, they're the ones. They're the kind of thickos of Britain.
They gravitate to the
the Scottish. The dwarfs have to be Scottish, and he's obviously ginger with his big ginger beard, like all us Scotsmen have.
Well, you look very much like a dwarf, I think, but that's maybe just the height and the girth. But in the appendix, though, so in the appendices, Appendix A of the Lord of the Rings, it says Dis was the daughter of Thrain II. She is the only dwarf woman named in these histories. So I thought that was interesting that he only mentions one dwarf woman by name, and she's called Dis. But in this, they call the female character that we've seen is called Dissa. So they obviously decided to use that sort of route and say, well, let's say that's a dwarvish woman's name. But anyway, that was a long way of saying nothing much.
We liked her, basically. I think I just liked basically everything. I've written down harfoots or hobbits. I like them. Scottish dwarves, naturally. I like them. You know, I basically just liked everybody. I thought it was
so his question. So for me, when I'm watching it, some of the things that, as you can see about the thing of the elves on the ship, it's just I ask myself the question: why are they doing this? You know, what's the reason? As long as I can understand the sort of internal logic of the story, it's all fine. But there was another bit that made me go like, why? Well, I've actually written it down here. Like, why? When the guy Celembribor or whatever his name is, the guy, the elven smith, artist,
sculptor guy,
he's going to forge the rings. That's going to be the thing that he's going to do, right? At some point, he's going to forge the rings of power, or some of them. But he says he needs to create this big forge, and he's got all these designs for this forge. And he goes, the problem is, I need to create this forge by spring. And Elrond doesn't go,
why?
Because we live forever. We're elves. We're going to live for like 50,000 years or something. Why do you need to have it done like by tomorrow? Which is literally, it's like as if you and I, because of the time frame that they're talking about, it's like as if I said to you, I need to build a house, Stephen. I've got a problem. You goes, okay, well, I'll help you. I said, it needs to be built by tomorrow morning. It's like, well, why? It's like, it doesn't make any sense. And he doesn't question it. And like in normal life, someone would instantly like say, well, why?
And the thing is, in a fantasy setting, it's so easy to explain because all he has to say is, "Oh, well, the moon's right."
Exactly. Tomorrow, it needs to be before the constellations.
The stars will align.
And it probably is that, and we'll probably find out later on because the whole thing of Gandalf was saying about the stars being aligned, or Gandalf, whoever.
Yeah, they show the constellation. Yeah.
So possibly it's going to be something like that. But the fact that the character who's just been brought in supposedly to help this smith guy to build this forge doesn't even ask the question why. It just felt weird,
They just go off and start smashing rocks with big hammers. Why would he think he could do that better than a dwarf?
And why, when he fails and the dwarf has said he's going to be banished forever, does he not get banished forever and everything's all fine?
I know he
afterwards?
comes round straight away within the. He's on the lift, isn't he? And he comes round within the space of about 20 seconds. He hates him. He's so angry at him, and then it's just, oh, come on then. Beer's staying for dinner.
Yeah, I didn't buy that whole thing, actually. The thing of Durin being so pissed off with him, and he says, you elves live forever. It's been 20 years. In that time, I've lived all this time. Well, dwarves live for a long time as well. So
maybe not quite. I thought that was quite a poignant moment.
I don't think they don't live as long as elves, but
no,
they still live for like hundreds of years, I think.
It's maybe just to hammer home the difference in how long the two live. And I thought it was quite poignant that he'd had a whole family basically in the line, that he'd lived a whole life in that time. But then just to come round and go, all right, never mind. Let's just be pals again. It did seem a bit silly, really.
Yeah, it's a bit creating jeopardy where jeopardy didn't need to be there, really, because he could have just knocked on the door and said, "Can I speak to Durin?" He goes, "Yeah, he's here."
I did laugh when they said, "Can I speak to Durin?" And the guy shouts, "No," and shuts the thing on the Scottish accent. No.
Yeah,
I did think that was quite funny. It's probably the only bit I did laugh at, actually.
Yeah, I got my last note of all of my notes is that the fight with the orc was pretty good, I thought, at the very end.
Yeah, with the boy
with
and
the humans fighting. Yeah,
although
fighting
it did seem a bit because I think the Uruk-hai were bred to be fighting machines.
Yeah,
and the previous orcs were a bit weedier. Whereas this guy's basically like a Terminator. He gets a pair of scissors in his back and he gets a sword shoved right through him, and he's battering off the stairs, and then he gets hung up, and he's still fighting on until she eventually cuts his head off.
I thought he was going to come back then. So my note was, I put orc fight good, and then I put afterwards unkillable ? Because it was ridiculous that he just kept on coming. And I agree with you, although perhaps that is a thing, because it could be that maybe the orcs are kind of weakened later on because the evil is destroyed, and then they have to kind of create the because I thought orcs had been gone from the world and they came back in the Third Age. So maybe these like super strong, powerful orcs or whatever that claw their way through the ground, because apparently he's dug these tunnels with his claws. Yeah. So it's all a bit.
It was kind of odd as well how when he first appears, he's wearing this big like
a skull,
a goat skull or something.
Yeah, it's like a horse's skull or something on his head. Yeah.
So you're sitting going, well, what's this? This is something new, and then it just turns out it's an orc after all.
Wearing a funny head.
Yeah, so it was a good bit of mystery and a reveal, but again, it harkens back to what we've seen before. So I don't know. You can take that either way, it's good or bad. But I think my impressions as I was sitting watching it, I just really enjoyed it. But when you're talking about it like this, you kind of end up nitpicking a bit more.
Absolutely. Yeah, but I think
it seems a bit more critical than we obviously both thought it was really good. I mean, I've written down 9 out of 10.
Yeah, I think my sort of general takeaway, if we sort of coming up to sort of wrapping up this bonus episode about Rings of Power episode 1 and 2, is I think I'd probably give it about 8 or 9 out of 10 and say it's really watchable, very good. And I think we're being overly critical and nitpicky because that's what you do when you talking about something in detail, but definitely worth the watch.
Definitely. And if you like the original movies, I think you'll love these, because we obviously really liked the first movie, which we covered in the last episode of the podcast. We really liked the first one, the second was good, and the third was kind of, we thought, a bit weaker. And this seems to have taken off from where Fellowship, the kind of quality level there.
This seems closer to Fellowship, and if we're sort of talking about it from comparing it to the movies, the reason it feels closer to Fellowship and maybe the Two Towers is because it's doing that thing of flitting around the country a lot, which I talked to you I think I talked to you about on another thing we were talking about in a podcast we recorded that's not come out yet, but we were talking about the House of the Dragon and saying that it doesn't have that sort of Game of Thrones thing of going from one place to another.
That's right.
In the first episode. And this does. So it goes to multiple places. It goes to all these different lands and different kingdoms, very much like it. But the thing that makes it really similar to Fellowship is that you care about the characters. It's focusing on those little individuals. So you care about Galadriel and the guy that she's met in the sea, whoever he is, a human guy, I guess. And you care about the sort of ranger elf,
the elf
Arondir, and the healer Bronwyn, which is called. And you care about the Elrond and his Durin, his friendship with Durin and Princess Disa. You care about the Harfoot. So it's these individual stories of people that you start to feel close to, and you want to know what happens to them. And if they die or get hurt later on in the series, you'll be genuinely upset about it. Where I think that's what was lacking in the later movies.
I do actually wonder what will happen to this Harfoot that got his foot injured. Is Gandalf or whoever he is going
I
to
think
turn up and heal him? It's got to be
I'm
something
imagining
like
that's how Gandalf is going to. I reckon that it's a little bit signposted, and so I do hope that they do some twists that you're not expecting, because so far I think that's, as I said, like, if we're really being nitpicky, I think that's one accusation you could throw at it, is it's a little bit repeating things, and it's a little bit obvious maybe some of the what's going to happen next.
But I suppose if there's 5 seasons to come, they're going to have to branch out, and no doubt by the 5th season, just like Game of Thrones, everybody will be getting angry about various aspects of it.
About everything, yeah, probably. But it'd be interesting to see. So I mean, we can make a prediction because we haven't seen, of course, episode 3 yet, and so my prediction, like you, would be that the Nori's father, the Harfoot who's broken his ankle or something, that all of the Harfoots, they're going to find the Gandalf stranger character. They're going to all be angry and threaten to kill him or something. It's all going to kick off, and then he's going to magically heal, and then the Harfoots are going to go, oh, maybe he's not so bad after all.
We'll become friends.
And this is the reason that Gandalf is going to have this affinity to hobbits, because from a very early, his first time on Middle Earth, he was helped by them or whatever.
One other thing that we never mentioned was when the comet or whatever it is strikes, obviously Gandalf's in it, so he appears. But there's also the aspect where the elf, the High King of the elves, is standing and picks up the leaf which falls off the tree. It's obviously supposed to be, why is this leaf falling off the tree? Because they don't have autumn.
Well, the thing is that I thought that was really weird, because there's tons of leaves that have fallen off before. Because there was a moment I thought, like, what? It's like literally the ground is just covered in leaves.
Maybe it's just the fact then that it turns black.
I think it's the fact that it's got black in its sort of veins. So he turns it over and it looks like it's been sort of poisoned. Yeah, because there were tons of leaves falling before.
So is that connected to the comet? That the leaves are turning black and the land is going bad, which is basically from an H.P. Lovecraft story, The Colour Out of Space, where a comet lands and makes the land go black.
It seems unlikely. It seems more likely that the land was already going bad, because they've said about the plants going bad. They said about the grass being poisoned in the east, and
I thought that was to do with the orc, so.
And then exactly, but I think all that is going to be linked. So I think it's coming from the east.
Right,
so I'm not 100% sure. And I think the comet is basically Gandalf or whoever he is being sent by the gods to protect the land, in the same way that it seems like the elves came originally to do the same. It seems like, because it seems like the elves came from their sacred kingdom to come and help Middle Earth against Morgoth. We will see. But yeah, thoroughly recommended, I think. We'll give it a thumbs up.
Yeah, definitely.
From us.
I look forward to the next episodes whenever they are. Do we know when they're out?
Every week, I think. One a week, every Friday.
Right,
so here's a question, though. Before we go, I just realised that one of the executive producers and people that created it for screen is called Patrick Mackay. So is this actually one of your relatives? Because I know you know all the Mackays.
Yeah, there's only a handful of us in Scotland, so I tend to know all of them. And he's actually my father.
Wow! So hopefully you get some money.
No, he's not really my father. I don't think he's related to me, because Mackay's not actually my real name, because I took my wife's surname when we get married. So I'm not actually a real Mackay. So maybe I suppose he might be related to her, but
yeah, he's going to be related to your wife, and
she's never mentioned it
with the money.
Yeah, no, she's never mentioned it.
Well, hopefully he spreads the money around the clan, and you'll be able to buy yourself a new kilt.
Yeah, I shave my ginger beard.
Buy a new razor to shave that massive ginger beard. So on that note, I think we should probably end this bonus episode, and it's been great.
It has, and we'll have another episode again next week, won't we? Is that right?
We will.
It will be. So like three in 3 weeks.
Wow. And of
Lucky
course,
people.
and we can say we've got a big guest coming up as well, but we can't. Do we name him or should we not name him?
We better not name him just in case
Let's
it
not name
falls
him.
through and we look like fools.
Okay, we've got a big guest though lined up, so fingers
Huge.
crossed. Huge, not fat. I don't think.
No, he's not
maybe.
personally, physically huge. I
He
don't
might
think.
be. I mean, I doubt it, but I don't think so.
People,
But yeah,
people love him. Basically,
people.
we love him.
We love him. Everybody we know loves him. Hopefully, we can get him on. He's agreed to come on and be interviewed. So watch this space, and when it's recorded and we've got it in the bag, in the can, or whatever they say, then we will let you know. But that's it for today's episode. Oh, before we go, you've got a book to plug, Stephen.
Yes, Wrath of the Pict it's called, and it's out tomorrow, Saturday the 3rd of September. You can pre-order it now in Kindle and paperback. Should be available by then as well. You can get posters if anybody wants one. You can see them on Facebook. And it's the 5th book in my Warrior Druid of Britain series. So get on that, because hopefully it's going to be a good one. And I believe you have also got a paperback available, Matthew.
I have. I've got the paperback of A Night of Flames, which is the sequel of A Time for Swords. Came out yesterday. So it is now available in all good bookshops. If you can't find it on the shelf of a bookshop where you are, please ask them to order it in, and they can definitely do so. And if you look on Amazon at the moment, Amazon are very, very good and have been very good to both of us. And they make good TV series about
Like Rings of
Lord of the
Power.
Rings. But at the moment, for some reason, the paperback isn't available on Amazon. So if you struggle to find it there, you can find it elsewhere, or you can wait until it appears properly on Amazon. At the moment, you can order it, but it says it's not coming out until November. It's, of course, wrong. So if you want it desperately, and of course, why wouldn't you? Then you can find it anywhere else. So you can find it in bookshop.org or some other place. Hive.
Waterstones or
Waterstones, yeah.
Whatever.
Or your local
Barnes and
bookshop.
Noble. Yeah. Support your high street.
Support your high street, yeah. So that really is it for today. And we hope you've enjoyed the episode. Please let us know if you have any comments or questions or anything else you'd like us to tackle in future episodes. You can contact us on our Facebook page, facebook.com/rockpaperswordspodcast. We're on Twitter as at I'm going to say that again. We're on Twitter as @rock_swords. And you can find out all about our books on MatthewHarfey.com and StephenAMackay.com, and come and say hi on Twitter or Facebook to us as well. The theme music is written and performed and copyrighted by us. So until next time on Rock, Paper, Swords, it's goodbye from me, Matthew Harfey.
And it's goodbye from me, Stephen A. Mackay.
And remember, whatever action and adventure you have going on in your life, be kind, stay safe, and happy reading.